Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we'll take a look at Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 16, and we'll examine text 8. Naham tatadmi yajamanahavi vitane Naham tatami yajamanahavir vitane Sjotad. It's almost like Russian. We've got three consonants blended together there. Grita. I'm sorry. Grita. Plutam. Adan. Huta. Bhun. Mukhena. Sjotad krita plutam adan huta bhun mukhena. Yad Brahmanasya Mukatas Charato Nughasam Yad Brahmanasya Mukatas Charato Nughasam Tushtasya Mai Avahitai Nijakarma Pakai Tushtasya Maya Tushtasya Maya Vahitai Nijakarma Pakai Tushtasya Maya Vahitai Nijakarma Pakai. Sorry, with my hearing aid set on normal, I hear everything now. That's a little hard to concentrate for the moment until the plane passes. Naham tatami yajamana havir vitane. Naham tatami yajamana havir vitane. Sjotad grita plutam adan huta bhun mukhena. Sjotad grita plutam Yad Brahmanasya Mukatas Charato Nughasam Yad Brahmanasya Mukatas Charato Nughasam Tushtasya Maya Vahitair Nijakarma Pakai Tushtasya Maya Vahitair Nijakarma Pakai Naham Tatami Yajamana Havir Vitane Naham Tatami Yajamana Sjotad grita plutam adan huta bhun mukhena. Sjotad grita plutam adan huta bhun mukhena. Yad brahmanasya mukatas charato nughasam. Yad brahmanasya mukatas charato nughasam. Tushtasya maya vahitair nijakarma pakai. Tushtasya maya vahitair nijakarma pakai. Others, please. Naham tatadami yajamanaha virtitane. Naham tatadami yajamanaha virtitane. Yos chadrita plutanan arahuta bunmukena. Sjotadrita plutamadan huta bunmukena. Yad brahmanasya mukatash charato nughasam. Yad brahmanasya mukatas charato nughasam. Tushtasya mai avahiter nijakarma pakai. Synonyms. Na.
Not.
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 Aham. I.
I.
Tatha. On the other hand.
On the other hand.
Admi. I eat.
I eat.
Yajamana.
Yajamana.
By the sacrificer.
By the sacrificer.
Havi.
Avi.
The oblations.
The oblations.
Vitane.
Vitane.
In the sacrificial fire.
In the sacrificial fire.
Shchota.
Shota.
Pouring.
Pouring.
Krita.
Grita.
Ghee.
Ghee.
Glutam.
Lutam.
Mixed.
Mixed.
Adan.
Adam.
Eating.
Eating.
Utabuk.
Utabuk.
The sacrificial fire.
The sacrificial fire.
Mukhena.
Mukena.
By the mouth.
By the mouth.
Yet.
Yat.
As.
As.
Brahmanasya.
Brahmanasya.
Of the Brahmana.
Of the Brahmana.
Mukhataha.
Mukataha.
From the mouth.
From the mouth.
Charataha.
Charataha.
Acting.
Acting.
Bless you.
Anugasham.
No, that was bless you. You're supposed to say bless you.
Gesundheit.
Gesund. Charataha.
Charataha.
Acting.
Acting.
Anughasam.
Anugasham.
Morsels.
Morsels.
Tushtasya.
Tushtasya.
Satisfied.
Satisfied.
Mai.
Mai.
To me.
To me.
Abhitaha.
Avahitaha.
Offered.
Offered.
Nija.
Nija.
Own.
Own.
Karma.
Karma.
Activities.
Activities.
Pakai.
Pakai.
By the results.
By the results.
Translation. I do not enjoy the oblations offered by the sacrificers in the sacrificial fire, which is one of my own mouths, with the same relish as I do the delicacies overflowing with ghee which are offered to the mouths of the brahmanas who have dedicated to me the results of their activities and who are ever satisfied with my prasad. Well, that's, I guess it's not.
That's a mouthful.
We should adjourn now.
Well, look at the key
We should
there.
take-
There's key in there, guys.
We should take the hint and
Gee whiz.
responsively, please. I do not enjoy the oblations
I do
I do
not
not
enjoy
enjoy
the
the
oblations
offered by the sacrificers
offered by the sacrificers
in the sacrificial fire,
in the sacrificial fire,
which is one of my own mouths,
which is one of my own mouths,
with the same relish
with the same relish
as I do the delicacies
as I do the delicacies
overflowing with ghee,
overflowing with ghee,
which are offered to the mouths of the brahmanas,
which are offered to the mouths of the brahmanas,
who have dedicated to me
who dedicated to me
the results of their activities,
the results of their activities,
and who are ever satisfied with my prasad.
and who are ever satisfied with my prasad.
Srila Prabhupada's purport. The devotee of the Lord or the Vaishnava does not take anything without offering it to the Lord. Since a Vaishnava dedicates all the results of his activities to the Lord, he does not taste anything eatable which is not first offered to him. The Lord also relishes giving to the Vaishnava's mouth all eatables offered to him. It is clear from this verse that the Lord eats through the sacrificial fire and the Brahmana's mouth. So many articles, grains, ghee, etc., are offered in sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord. The Lord accepts sacrificial offerings from the Brahmanas and the devotees, and elsewhere it is stated that whatever is given for the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas to eat is also accepted by the Lord. But here it is said that he accepts offering to the mouths of the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas with even greater relish. The best example of this is found in the life of Advaita Prabhu in his dealings with Haridas Thakur. Even though Haridas was born of a Mohammedan family, Advaita Prabhu offered him the first dish of prasad after the performance of a sacred fire ceremony. Haridas Thakur informed him that he was born of a Mohammedan family and asked why Advaita Prabhu was offering the first dish to a Mohammedan instead of an elevated Brahmana. Out of his humbleness, Haridas condemned himself a Mohammedan, but Advaita Prabhu, being an experienced devotee, accepted him as a real Brahmana. Advaita Prabhu asserted that by offering the first dish to Haridas Thakur, he was getting the result of feeding 100,000 Brahmanas. The conclusion is that if one can feed a Brahmana or a Vaishnava, it is better than performing hundreds of thousands of sacrifices. In this age, therefore, it is recommended that Hare Nama, chanting of the holy name of God, and pleasing the Vaishnava are the only means to elevate oneself to spiritual life. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Mukhaṁ karoti vachalam pungum langhayate girim jakrapatamam vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamaham Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. Naham tatadmi yajamana havirvitanischo tadkrita plutamadan bhutapumkena yad brahmanasya mukatascharato nukhasam tushtasya maya avahitar nijakarma pakai. I do not enjoy the oblations offered by the sacrificers in the sacrificial fire, which is one of my own mouths, with the same relish as I do the delicacies overflowing with ghee, which are offered to the mouths of the brahmanas who have dedicated to me the results of their activities and who are ever satisfied with my prasad. So much in this verse and in this purport. One thing is that we understand that, when we talk about the Lord's body in this world, we speak of the Brahmanas as being the head, and they're particularly the mouth. They accept sacrifice on behalf of the Lord. They accept edibles offered to them. And the Lord, as we see here, enjoys such offerings even more than offerings made directly into the fire, which also is one of his mouths. But they also speak on behalf of the Lord. The Brahmana's duties sixfold. Patana patana yajana yajana dana pratigraha. Patana patana yajana yajana dana pratigraha. So, studying the knowledge of the Vedic scriptures and teaching it, engaging in sacrifice and teaching others to engage in sacrifice, giving in charity and accepting charity. We used to joke sometimes that this is when we were more obviously much less mature, that we were more interested in accepting charity than giving charity. There was also, we had to sometimes emphasize that it's the duty of a Brahmana to also give in charity. So, who's speaking here? Lali?
Krishna.
No. Nice try. Close. Narayana. Narayana is speaking, and to whom Is he speaking? Four Kumaras. Thank you. Lord Narayan is speaking to the four Kumaras. And he's already, he is expressing in so many ways his special affection for Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahman Hitaya Cha Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo. That Krishna is particularly affectionate toward the Brahmanas and the cows. They're very important. The Brahmanas and the cows are very important to Krishna. And we see that included among the Brahmanas are the Vaishnavas. That even more important than the Brahmanas are the Vaishnavas, because the Vaishnavas' whole lives are dedicated to Krishna. Yat karoshi yadishnasi yat jahosi dadasi yat tapasvasi kamtaya. So whatever the Vaishnava does is done simply as an offering to the Lord. The Vaishnavas don't do anything except on behalf of the Lord. So, so this is a really important thing for us to understand. That included, this is an argument that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur made to the in the assembly of Brahmanas. There was a debate in which Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur established conclusively that conclusively that that the status of Brahman is included in Vaishnava. Therefore, he would, when he gave Vaishnava Diksha, what we refer to as second initiation, to his disciples, he included the sacred thread no matter what family they came from. Regardless of whether they had already accepted the sacred thread, the upavita as a part of an earlier initiation. And and he did that essentially to make the point that the status of a Brahmin is included in the status of a Vaishnava. If someone is a Vaishnava, they're automatically a Brahmana. We saw in an earlier purport, Brahmajanatiti Brahmana. A Brahmana is someone who knows Brahman. And a Vaishnava is someone who knows not just Brahman, but also Paramatma and Bhagavan, right? So here we have the Lord. So, and then previously, he accepted responsibility for the gatekeeper's offense as his own. And he said, if my arm offends you, then I would cut it off. If my own arm offended you, then I would cut that off. So he's demonstrating in so many ways how dear the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. And now these four sages are Vaishnavas. They've been turned, right? Just like when we have in spy stories. You capture a spy and you want to see if you can turn that spy and make her or him a double agent. Send them back to the other country. Of course, when I was growing up, spy novels generally turned around, the us and them that was then the big thing, the West and the Soviet Union, the two big superpowers, U.S. and the USSR. So you try to get the Soviet spy, turn the Soviet spy, and you send her back, and she becomes a double agent, and she spies on the Soviets for us. But then maybe she's a triple agent. She becomes a triple agent. So you don't want that to happen. So here, the Kumaras have been turned from just Brahmanas, and Brahmanas who were completely satisfied in themselves, to people who hankered after the Lord's lotus feet. And how did that happen? By smelling the aroma of the tulsi leaves offered to the Lord's lotus feet, by seeing the Lord's beautiful face, and by being face to face with Krishna's, with Lord Narayana's Swarupa Shakti, his internal potency, the goddess of fortune. So here the Lord is actually expressing, outwardly he's expressing his inclination toward the Brahmanas. But even more than that, he's expressing his particular inclination toward the Vaishnavas. And as I've mentioned before, remember where, look at my notes here, see where I want to go. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes a very strong argument early in Madhurya Kadambini, and then he cements it at the end of Madhurya Kadambini, about the importance of the Vaishnavas, and the nature of this inclination of the Lord toward the Vaishnavas. So, early on, Madhurya Kadambini is a text written to show essentially how bhakti works, how it works through the 9 stages that Srila Rupa Goswami suggests in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And so we read this the other day, but some of it's worth going over again. That the cause of bhakti is bhakti. So he says, yadruchaya. So if we take the word yadruchaya to mean by good fortune, by some good fortune, as I've sometimes half-jokingly said, by dumb luck, we encounter bhakti. So does it come from pious activities, or is it independent of these things? And so he says, well, it's self-manifesting. And okay, so if it's not the result of pious actions, then its cause remains unknown. Then if we can't figure out where that good fortune comes from, how can we understand that is the cause of bhakti, that good fortune is the cause of bhakti? So it's got to be something else. So if we say the Lord's mercy is the cause of bhakti, then we have to understand the causes of that mercy. And so, because not everybody gets bhakti. So how come some people get that mercy and some people don't? So does that mean that the Lord plays favorites? And then he says, when the Lord destroys the demons in order to protect his devotees, his favoritism is not to be considered a fault, but a glory. It's a mahatmya. It's an ornament. This is because the Lord's affection for his devotees is his supreme quality, ruling over all his other attributes, like a king over his subjects. And then he says, as will be explained further on in this book, in the 8th shower. So the 8th shower of Madhurya Kadambini deals with prema. And if I can find this. So in this section, we see that the Lord's mercy doesn't have any cause other than itself. But how does it work? And so next, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is going to establish that the bhakti in one devotee's heart is the cause of bhakti in another's. It's catching.
Oh, infectious.
It's catching. It's a virus.
Yeah.
We get bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya, the Bhagavatam says. It's a haituki, right? It doesn't have any cause other than itself. So where does bhakti come from? It comes from bhakti. Bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. We get sadhana bhakti from the Vaishnavas with whom we associate, especially from the Guru. We catch the Guru's bhakti. Vishwanath explains in this early part of the Madhurya Kadambini that the Lord deputes those Madhyama Vaishnavas who are inclined to share their bhakti with others as agents of his Kripa Shakti. That's how we get bhakti. We get bhakti from the bhaktas. So it's like a virus. It's catching. Just like there's a poem attributed to Hafiz. I'm not sure it's Hafiz. There's some controversy over this fellow who's written some books claiming to be poetry of Hafiz. The guy is really a disciple of somebody else, not a real Sufi. But he's written a couple of books of poetry that he says are Hafiz poems, and one of them is called The Happy Virus. And I don't know if it's Hafiz or this guy Ladinsky, but I like it. It's a cute little poem. He says, I caught the happy virus last night while singing God's names under the stars. It's very contagious. So kiss me. I posted this poem on Facebook a few years ago, and one of my sannyasi friends said, okay, so I'm the hugging guru, you're the kissing guru. And I said, oh, great. That's all I need. So the bhakti is very catching. It's very contagious, like the Omicron variant of our current whatever the heck it is, right? It's very contagious. It's not as nasty maybe as some of the other variants that we've seen over the last couple of years, but it's real easy to spread. So bhakti's like that. And a lot of people haven't very carefully immunized themselves against it. So the bhaktas go around. I meant to point out this is a point that I missed. I was lamenting this with Toshan Krishna and Manjari afterwards. I said, oh my God, there was a point I missed when I was talking about the Guru is an agent of the Lord's mercy. Nityananda, as the Samashti Guru, and the Guru is an agent of the Lord's mercy. I wanted to bring Srila Prabhupada into that, because when one of his godbrothers, B.R. Sridhar Maharaj, one of his intimate friends, heard the poems that Srila Prabhupada wrote on the Jaladuta, especially his prayer to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, he opined that certainly, at least by this time, Swami Maharaj had emptied himself of everything other than the desire to serve the order of our spiritual master. Therefore, I say he is Shakti-Avesh Avatar. And later, when one of his disciples, Govinda Maharaj, his successor, asked him, you said Swami Maharaj is Shakti-Avesh Avatar. What kind of Avesh? Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, Nityananda Avesh. He went giving away the holy name free, like water. Just giving it out for free. Prabhupada himself said, I was experimenting with the holy name to see what would happen. He had this faith, just like Lord Nityananda in his marketplace of the holy name, giving the holy name simply for the price of a little faith. How little faith? Whatever it took just to stop and listen for a moment, right? Adau Shraddha, the very first step in bhakti, out of these 9 steps. So later at the end, in this 8th section, 8th shower of Madhurya Kadambini, he says, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, as the premi devotee eagerly tries to relish all of Krishna's sweet attributes in full, he feels himself unable to do so any more than a chatak bird can catch all the drops of rain in his tiny beak. Perfectly appropriate image, I think, for Madhurya Kadambini, the downpour of transcendental sweetness. Seeing this, the Lord thinks, why do I have so much sweetness in me? And so just to allow his devotee to fully partake of his sweetness, he reveals his 7th divine attributes, his compassion, karunya. And then he says this attribute is the expansion of his supreme energy, his mercy. which sits like a great queen in the whorl of a lotus, surrounded by all his other energies on the petal of that lotus, whose names like Bimala and Utkarshini have been revealed in the Agama scriptures and elsewhere. This power of mercy, also known as Anugraha, manifests herself first in Krishna's eyes and then appears in the devotee when she is given different appellations, such as protective affection, vatsalya, or kindness, karunya, to those moods like that of servitude, have the moods like that of servitude, or as the Lord's heart-melting attractiveness to those in the mood of romantic love. Through this power of mercy, the Lord's all-pervading will, Ichha Shakti, takes on colors in the saintly devotee and elevates even those who are supremely self-satisfied in the state of transcendental wonder. And here we have examples of the four Kumars, Sanat Kumar and the other Kumars, Shukadev Goswami, and more recently Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and others. So he says, it is through this power of mercy that the Lord's virtue known as Bhakta Vatsalya, his protective tendency toward his devotees, is crowned emperor over all his other attributes, which were listed by Bhumi in the first canto of the Bhagavatam. And we'll go back and take a look at the verses where that's discussed in just a moment. Someone could take that clock down. So this verse from the Agama Shastras is something called Kramadipika, which lists these eight attributes: Vimala, Utkarshini, Jnana, Kriya, Yoga, Prapi, Satya, and Ishana. They're like 8 petals of a lotus, and the whorl is that 9th energy called Anugraha, who rules like a great empress over all the rest of them. And then, as the verse says, that these can't come from the Lord's eyes. Okay, I have a couple of other things I wanted to do. Really feel myself under the gun.
Jai Shri Panchatattva Ki.
I'm with you. Maybe I should just stop here while I'm about Shri Panchatattva Ki Jai. Because, 116. How did I get here? Okay. Somehow or other I got lost. Okay, students. Maybe it's time for intermission. Oh, I see, I'm in the wrong canto. Silly me. There we go. So here we're where I want to be. I could search all day for that verse and I won't find it because I'm in the wrong canto. So here's of these different virtues of the Lord are given: truthfulness, cleanliness, intolerance of another's unhappiness, the power to control anger, self-satisfaction, straightforwardness, steadiness of mind, control of the sense organs, responsibility, equality, tolerance, equanimity, faithfulness, knowledge, absence of sense enjoyment, leadership, chivalry, influence, the power to make everything possible, the discharge of proper duty, complete independence, fullness of all beauty, serenity, kind-heartedness, ingenuity, gentility, magnanimity, determination, perfection in all knowledge, proper execution, possession of all objects of enjoyment, joyfulness, immovability, fidelity, fame, worship, pridelessness, being as the personality of Godhead, eternity, and so many others. And then in his purport, Srila Prabhupada says, He says, he's going to do some other stuff, but maybe I'm not. Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, the third quality, intolerance of another's unhappiness, can be divided into two: protection of the surrendered souls and well wishes for devotees. Then he states that in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says he wants every soul to surrender to him only, and he assures that if one does so, he will give protection even from the reactions to his sins. So this protective affection of the Lord, this is his supreme quality, the empress or emperor, depending on where you read it, over all his other qualities, all his other good qualities. Quick, pop quiz. Name some instances where the Lord showed his protective affection to his devotees. Anybody? We have 3 seconds to do this. Pardon? Prahlad Maharaj. Very good. Good one. Ambarish Maharaj. This came up yesterday evening. We were discussing Nectar of Devotion. And Bennett, not having been introduced to the 9th canto, because there was some mention, we were talking about the 9 different processes of devotional service that Prahlad gives in the 7th canto, and then the examples of each of those, and then Ambarish as the example of someone who does all of them. And so Bennett wanted to know who's Ambarish. He was a great devotee who was protected by the Lord, essentially. Anything else?
Draupadi.
That just came to my mind. I hadn't thought of that before. It's not on my list. Draupadi.
Sugriva.
Draupadi in a couple of instances, right? Draupadi in the assembly hall, Draupadi in the forest. We were talking about that as well recently, where Durvasa Muni was sent by Duryodhana to try to embarrass the Pandavas and get them cursed by Ambarish, by Durvasa. Sugriva also. Sugriva just surrendered. And this is where we get this, if one just says to me just once, my dear Lord, from this day I am yours, I will give him complete fearlessness. In other words, he's offering him the same kind of protection. How about Gajendra is another one, right? And he came to protect Gajendra. And then there are instances where the Lord, Arjuna, when he was being attacked by Bhishma, and Bhishma's desire to have this chivalrous exchange with the Lord, the Lord will even break his own word. He gives his word that I will always protect my devotee. So he wants that, he'll break another promise, I'm not going to take up any weapon, to protect his devotee, but also to satisfy Bhishma's desire. So the Lord always sees himself as the servant of the devotees, and then there's places where we see the Lord serving the devotees or the brahmanas, and Sudama Vipra is one of those as well. So this is the Lord's, this Bhakta Vatsalya, this protective affection for the devotees. This is the Lord's supreme ornament, and we see it on full display here. In his making this arrangement, the Lord, as we see in the Nectar of Devotion and Bhakti Rasamrita, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is very clever. And Srila Prabhupada says, clever means he can accomplish many ends by one means, through one means. So, with this pastime, the Lord is accomplishing several ends with this one setup. And we see that the Kumars are set up, Jaya and Vijaya are set up. It's a whole big setup so that we can have these really amazing pastimes that also show the glories of the Lord, and even more the glories of his devotees. Just as we pointed out, the 7th canto has 10 chapters in this Nrsimha Leela, but who's the star of the show? In the other Puranas, Lord Nrsingadev is the star of the Nrsimha Leela, right? But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's Prahlad, Haridas Avarya. Okay, I'm going to stop there because there's too much. Quick questions or comments? Thakur Haridas. today's purport?
The last sentence.
Of today's purport. In this age, therefore, it is recommended that Hare Nama, chanting the holy name of God, and pleasing the Vaishnava are the only means to elevate oneself to spiritual life.
So can you give some examples of pleasing